Hello, everybody. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to present to you today a topic which is an extremely important one. And everybody around the world really wants to know how to do it and how to do it best. I'm going to talk to you about, is your brand positioned for success? And when I say that, I'm talking about success. I want to tell you a couple of things and be clear about them right from the beginning. So, first of all, there are no global solutions in this case. The world is quite big and the competition out there is fierce, and there are many, many competitors in many, many different fields and categories of business. I'm going to give you today an overview of the purpose of finding your positioning. And I must emphasize that each brand must and does have its own positioning. Whether you did it intentionally or not, the minute you create a brand, the minute you are active in the market, you are already positioned one way or another because it's a question of perception. How do your customers, suppliers, and everybody else who does business with you, how do they perceive you in terms of your positioning in the business world? The last thing that I'm going to emphasize is that the right solution for you, whatever you will be finding, whatever you will be implementing from this presentation, is not necessarily the same for your competitors, and vice versa. Do not adopt things that your competitors are doing because it's not necessarily the right solution for you. So, my very, very basic principle about global success is this. If you have a website, you are already a global brand. That's it. There need no be further discussion because once you have a website, people from all over the world can reach you, can do business with you, and most of everything else, they have an impression of your brand. They know who you are and what you stand for. Why? Consumers can see your brand, your merchandise, your services, and they form an opinion about you. Forming an opinion about you is basically the essence of branding. So, if I can define positioning, positioning involves the process of defining the marketing mix variables so that customers have a clear, distinctive, desirable understanding of what the brand does or represents in comparison to your competitors. And that's a very simple business-like definition that I'm sure everybody can understand. Online positioning, which most people are involved with today, basically means that wherever and how firms can employ relative rankings in search engine results to differentiate their brands from competitors in cyberspace remains a critical, puzzling issue in e-commerce. The more we see online, the more confused we get, the more difficult it is to create a positioning and to actually have our voice heard because there is a tremendous noise out there in cyberspace. So it is very, very important to really evaluate what is your online positioning and have a clear understanding what it is that you want to say and how. So do not assume that what you say and do in your country is relevant to other countries. And that's kind of a very old understanding that we have, that even as we travel as tourists from one culture to another, we see things that we do not experience in our countries. The same thing applies to commerce, the way you behave, the way you write your materials, whether it's content, whether it's websites, whether it's social media, whatever you do, do not assume that what works in your country is going to work the same way in other locations. So online brand positioning competitive analysis worksheet. You must have in it the target market, what are the social media strategies that you're going to employ, what are the number of social media accounts that you really want to use, because not all of them are equally used in different parts of the world. For example, Facebook followers, Instagram followers, LinkedIn followers, the strength, the weaknesses, and the opportunities that your business and your brand have. So this is kind of a very, very basic beginning of how to create an online brand positioning, but not only online. It could also work in other more traditional media. So here's one key to success. Every organization in the world has three constituencies which are made of customers, shareholders, and employees. In case the company is not publicly traded, there are no shareholders, but there are stakeholders. In other words, owners. Could be a family-owned business, but the stakeholders and the shareholders are in the same box. So you have customers, owners, shareholders, and employees. Now, that can change. You can put employees first on the top, shareholders at the bottom, with customers at the bottom, and that will be one kind of an operation. Or you can again switch it and put the shareholders as the number one group with customers and employees at the bottom. So this kind of triangle, this kind of a play, right from the beginning, is positioning your company in a very, very specific way. And that means that people see you in a totally different way. I'm not going to give examples here because they're different from one culture to another. But we do know what companies, for example, are giving full attention to their employees and put them as the most important thing, what companies put the shareholders as number one, and what companies consider the customers the most important group. But here it is. If you do an organizational perceptual map of your organization, whatever group is coming on top of this triangle is your brand position, because it presents your company to the world in a very, very specific way. So just keep in mind things like this. Only 14% of customers defect because of product quality. 68% of defections occur because of staff indifference. So that means that if you neglect your employees, it may hurt the performance of your brand. At the same time, 70% of buying experiences are based on how customers feel that they are being treated. So again, you can have now a completely different relationship where your employees are not providing satisfactory service and then immediately put your company in a specific bad spot. And that is a bad positioning for the brand. No matter how much advertising you do, no matter how active you are on social media, it's a perception, it's an experience, and you are providing a positioning of a brand that is not going to win. So consider now the three other elements that exists in companies today. The brand on top. At the bottom you have people and technology. The business will grow, the brand will grow, as well as the people and the technology will serve it. So you must have a position on that. You must have a decision to make in your business. What are you going to prefer? Are you going to use technology more than people? Or if you use people, what are you going to do from the human aspect of your brand, and how is it positioned in the public? So here is some explanation on this. Brands are basically a business strategy brought to life, and they are the primary means for differentiation and growth. And differentiation alone means the positioning of your brand. People. Brands are about people and how they connect to the purpose of a business. So again, at the end of the day, I don't care how many robots you're using. I don't care how much automated your services are. People are basically running the business. People make the decisions about what technology will do or not. And in terms of technology, it helps accelerate growth and customer proximity, but only through brands can it deliver meaningful engagement. So again, when we go back to brands and what they stand for, and just by saying stand for, it's a positioning, then we can determine how people may interpret the positioning of our brand in public. Now, let's talk a little about the positioning of your competitors, because no matter what you do, you're not going to be alone in this world. You're going to be competing against many, many other companies, many other brands. So let's examine that situation a little bit. Now, there's a warning here. How many competitors do you really think you have? And here I must tell you that there is some kind of hierarchy that you always have to consider. And here it is. You have to define what is your competition. Number one, you have direct competitors. They provide similar products, similar services, and their revenue goal is almost identical to yours, meaning the price of their products and services are identical to yours. So that's the number one direct competitor. The second ones are indirect competitors, similar products but different revenue goal, meaning they could be cheaper than you, they could be more expensive than you, but they still compete with you because some consumers will prefer either a lower price or a higher price, and I will talk about it later. The third one is a replacement competitor, substitute products, same customer time and money. In other words, if customers are facing an offer or a promotion by a replacement product that they didn't think about, they may consider it. And at that moment that they may consider it, you lost your business. Now, a brand that everybody around the world knows very well, Nike. This is just a short list of what are considered to be direct competitors with Nike. Why? Because all of these people make running shoes, sports gear, and stuff like that. However, there are some other competitors to Nike, and those could be department stores that are selling products in this category. So suddenly, a big department store or a big website could be a competitor to Nike unless Nike has a direct relationship with them and they basically promote the services of that department store. But we know that there is a black market, for example, in some shoes, specifically in the collectors market, and that is not necessarily doing a good thing for Nike. I just heard recently that there is an imitation shoe in the market, and Nike is suing them because they even use the swoosh on those shoes. So there are many, many different types of competitors out there. Now, let's talk about your positioning. What you have to do is this. You have to determine your consumer's perception and their evaluation in relation to the competition. And you have to do it for each and every global region where you operate. Because as I said before, these things are not exactly the same. The perception of your brand in one country will not be the same as in your country. You have to identify your competitor's position. It requires a lot of work, a lot of research, but without it, you will be blind. You will not know where you are. You will not know how to position yourself. Select the position that you want to be in. And of course, it has to be different. Monitor the position strategy and align it with your brand message. Not only the message, but the brand performance. Because what you do, your actions, are much more important than what you just say. Here is an example. This is a perceptual map, and for positioning, everybody has to do perception maps. This one happens to be on oral health products, and you can see, for example, how many different categories are to consider. The value for money at the top, recommendations at the bottom. On the left, we have the health aspect, and on the right, we have the germ protection. These are very specific attributes of oral health products, and we have to consider all of them. So we will know what to do. We will know what kind of environment we are operating in and position our brand to be more successful. Now, very simple. You can decide to do your own perceptual map and use the very, very simple items like expensive versus cheap, luxury versus common. And right there, you will get a very, very interesting perspective, like this one. Here you have the prestige price on top versus the affordability at the bottom, mass market versus exclusivity. So all the elements of a luxury market and luxury goods are included here. And you can see that even among these, there are differences. So for some people, it'll be much more important to be prestigious, to be perceived as prestigious and as exclusive by buying certain luxury goods. And for others, it'll be enough if it's a mass market and it is affordable. So those are the kind of things that you can consider when you're talking about luxury goods. Or you can also do some simple things. Again, I'm going back to simplicity, where you consider cool versus regular, specialty versus mass market. Another thing that I want you to think about internally is understand the roles in your organization and understand the differences between product manager and brand manager. The product manager is responsible for business development, technology, and user experience. The brand manager is basically responsible for the 360 degrees of all the brand touch points that your customers have with your brand. The pre-purchase decisions, during the purchase, and the post-purchase experience. So it's all about the experiences that your customers have with your brand. Now, I want to emphasize that positioning is part of your brand DNA. And as such, I want you to consider this. Understanding DNA helps heal humans. And understanding your brand DNA will help you position your business. Unfortunately, I have only 20 minutes and I'm already at 18:30. So I'm going to move to the next slide and recommend to you to get this book. And you will find much more advice here and much more attention to details. It's Global Brand Management, written by myself and my partner Lawrence Minsky, and you will find amazing information and advice. And I always, always encourage you to stay in touch with me. And thank you for your time today.